What's up, everyone? Kane here, captain of the Day's Pirates, coming at you with a locals tournament recap and gameplay for Nerd Rage Gaming, actually a part of a larger series that they're starting to run. This was the league that I used to play in. They now have adapted into a tournament series, which I do kind of like a little bit more. The long and short of it, there's going to be a number of qualifying tournaments leading up until March. First place from each one gets invited to the March tournament. Top two from that tournament is going to go into a larger tournament for the year that will, pull from other events and things that they're going to work on. So basically, the previous league winners will get an invite to this first final, just on kind of riding into it, and then anyone who wins one of these qualifying events will get into that event, and matchups will be picked by people who have the highest attendance through the qualifying series, which I do kind of like as well, to keep the events big and competitive as well while people have invites. Um, but overall, my deck list, if you want to see kind of my thoughts on my current deck list, the 7-3 Treasure Cup list, I start with a list that's slightly different than this one and explain my Treasure Cup thought process and then why I now have this list as my current paper list. And if I have an event this weekend, this is probably what I would just take. Still tweaking some things, playing different games on the sim and working on some things, but the list has been feeling very great. So if you want to hear a more in-depth breakdown of that, I would pivot over into that. Um, from here, I am going to go ahead and go into round one. I did have a game here against Doflamingo. I am going to kind of jump forward a little bit. If this is, don't think this audio is going to be too helpful, so I'm going to turn it down quite a bit. But just kind of from a competitive standpoint, he is somebody that, oh, slow down. He did roll. He elected to go first. He is playing Doflamingo, and actually, he just got back from nationals this past weekend and was 34th. Tiebreakers out of being a top 32 Doflamingo as well. So very solid player. I've played with him before. Very nice guy as well. So appreciate him being on the channel. But yeah, going first is very important in this matchup. So I don't love to see that. And then he starts off with a buggy. I believe I mulliganed. I'm fairly certain that I did mulligan. I should have taken a better note on it, but I'm pretty sure I did. Then he turn ones out a Jinbei, or turn two a Jinbei into a Boa, doing another reset. That's 8. So early I didn't have a lot of 2K, so I did just take that. Obviously, playing around putting, there is some consideration to get out of an 8K swing a little bit earlier than, maybe necessary in other matchups. I did just go 6 into Jinbei because I top decked a Nami. Did get a 2K. I think this is the only 2K that I had at my hand at this time. Might be wrong. I was in with another Jinbei into a Weevil. Pretty awkward for me. I think I do take that as well because I wanted to play the 1K I think I had, if I'm recalling correctly. I think the 1K, I'm now kind of forgetting exactly what it was. I think this was not a very efficient play. I don't think that this 7 into life should have happened first, especially if I'm now going to go in here. I make my leader 7K, and then I go 8 into Boa. This is just very bad sequencing, period. Either I probably should have gone 9 into Boa and then 6 into life, or just gone 8 into Boa, because I did go 8 here, and then go 7 into life after. But going 7 into life first and giving him an extra card, this is just wrong and inefficient and something that we cannot afford in this matchup. Really, I probably shouldn't have even played for board this at all. The only reason I did is because it was specifically a boa, and it was that blocker. I do think going for the 8 into it is fine and good, or maybe proper. Um, there may even be a case to go 8, 9 into it and let my leader or my Mr. 2 go 6 into life after I go 9 into here. Um, because I really getting that off the board. If I want to prioritize getting that off the board, I should do that, right? Does that make like, I hope that makes sense. Like if I'm going to prioritize getting that off the board, I should either put both the down on my leader or just the one down and do that first before giving the additional card out of his life to make that decision. It could have been 9 or 8 into that, and then still 7 or 6 into leader afterwards, and been significant. That's the type of lines where I think a RP Luffy is a little bit slept on from a difficulty perspective of that's enough of a decision to not lose the game on the spot per se. Um, but the momentum and tides of this game can be extremely punishing. And I was kind of forced to take that because I just did not have 2Ks. So I guess sorry, I kind of a message from my wife. Um, Here I'm pressured into taking this because it's 9, and I have 3 2Ks and a Gum Gum Giant in my, or 3 1Ks and a Gum Gum Giant in my hand. Um, and if I pitch 3 cards to save this life, I'm also in a massively losing position. So it's just a kind of awkward curve, and he attacked me very well here. If he did go for 7, 7, 7, 8, I can counter out of all those and feel decent. Um, but this being kind of the curve that it was, and Usohachi being the only 2K that I've had through this point, was pretty brutal. And at this point, I think I do kind of get on my heels a little bit, and I think this Yatop play, I think this next turn I swing a little bit inefficiently as well. For that previous turn, the Mr. 2, I realized as I kind of attack, like went in for that attack that was inefficient, and then but it was just kind of too little, too late, and then yeah. The Nami here. Gum Gum Giant, good. Now I have 2 Gum Gum Giants. I think I have a Eustace Kid that I'm planning on playing. I'm just thinking. Let's go 6 into face. He still has 4 life, so he's in a pretty commanding position from here. I mean, I have clawed out of these types of games with a couple Giants, and just kind of attacks and blocks and them not having a Perfume Femur. Um, but yeah, do play the kid. I did already use my leader effect, so that down's not coming back. So I do have down up for both my Giants, assuming that they're necessary. And obviously, he's kind of immediately sizing me up for attacks and figuring out how he wants to go into the 7K leader. I do think the 6 into the Yasop is a pretty healthy just check there. I can't kind of afford to commit counter there when it's just less than my leader. Goes in for 7. Take one of my 1. Goes in for 7. Take one of my 1s. Goes in for 7. Take another 1. I think I kind of played myself here because I only had 2 cards left, and they were both giants. Maybe I only have 1 giant. Oh yeah, okay, I did only have 1 giant. Yeah. So I got all those, cycle through, and he just lets me live basically. Computer effect up to 10. This point, it's again kind of futile to try and check their board. If you're gonna swing into a 6K, it's just not as efficient. They have 3 life left. It's gotta be desperations at times. I think I'm basically cooked here either way. I think I basically just drop them. I think after my turn. But let's see what I do. Oh yeah, just kind of say like, well, if you have absolutely no counter, okay, well now I'm screwed. I was gonna try, yeah, I just kind of tried to get in with Nami's because I just didn't have anything else to do, and I needed to connect 4 times. Um, so it's just the only way I could swing 4 times, so I tried. Didn't really matter, but was kind of the thought. And yeah, I just had a 1K counter and 2 bricks, and kind of a pretty brutal loss. Um, Early on, kind of that inefficiency with swinging into Boa could have costed me, right? That was another attacker that was present through his next 2 turns. But the lack of early 2Ks in going second with double Jinbei into 6Ks, strong player. Again, if that turn where he swung for a 10K 10K or 9K 9K, he instead went like 7-7 7-8, which I've seen a lot of players do. I'm in a much better position, and then I'm able to grind out a bit healthier. Um, but that's not what he did. So, um, well played by him, and like I said, very strong player. I do have a game that on my matchup guide that we played after this because we had some time. So, um, this game will be against our buddy Jay Hill, another very strong player. I didn't mean to have this so slanted towards my opponent, so I don't mean to try and overly showcase them or like try and shade it away from me. Didn't realize this. I'm kind of short, so I gotta like stand on a table to or on a chair to like see the tripod on the table. It's kind of funny. But he's playing Purple Luffy. Overall, he's an extremely strong player. In general, he's more of a control player. Right now, he's loving Smoker. He likes Blackbeard. He's played Gecko a lot. He's played a good amount of. He played Dofi just because he just plays strong decks. I think to be familiar with them and overall. But right now, he said Smoker is probably his favorite deck. But he brought this deck because his friend was supposed to play Foxy tonight, and they didn't show up. But he won the role, elected to go first, which is about right. But we're going second, and I have a pretty ideal curve overall, or at least, kind of what we're looking for. Mr. 2. And here he goes into 7. Technically, they want to be playing Luffy Taro here. However, Sanji, when we have the Mr. 2, is a little bit annoying. But in this case, this kind of is what it is. And funnily here, I do take this Usopp swing because I kind of value some of my 1Ks in hand a little bit more than the 2K that I have in hand. And I think I was a little bit more flush on counter in general this game. So I kind of just decided I'm going to 2K the Sanji swing, so I'll take this first and see if it's, another 2K or something else. Now on 7 down, I do kind of think about this quite a bit. I'm basically deciding between I have a 7 cost Sanji, and this can be additional rush pressure, or I can play a 7 cost Beckman and answer his Usopp. I'm kind of agonizing with it, maybe more than I need to be. I do elect to Beckman and KO the Usopp. Usually we want this to be KOing like the Sangoro or a blocker or rather trashing. But it is just still the most effective, I think. Like it just kind of was a good tempo swing. It sticks on board. If this was like a black deck and I'm worried about this Beckman being immediately removed, I may have gone for the Sanji and gotten the pressure in, but because it's Purple Luffy, I don't really think this Beckman's gonna get removed by anything, so I can just kind of stick it, take a little bit of pressure off the board, and preserve my hand size just a little bit more. It takes life to go up to 9. And then he swings with his 7K Sanji. And it's kind of funny because when he swings with the 7K Sanji, I'm really, really tempted to take it, the 2Ks at this point. Um, well, I guess maybe, I'm trying to remember what my hand was. Maybe earlier I probably should have 1K'd the Usopp, kept that 2K, and taken the Sanji swing because I didn't end up playing the Sanji anyways. So yeah. Well, actually, that's one thing to catch here. If I could have been a little bit more decisive about the fact that I was going to play this Beckman over the Sanji, and I also think I get a second Sanji, which is a little bit annoying, but the Beckman over the Sanji, um, then I would have been able to 1K the Usopp, keep the 2K for the second Sanji swing, and take the first Sanji swing as opposed to the other way around. And I would have had one more card in hand coming out of this exchange. Um, the reason I felt extremely to drop the two 1Ks, usually I would consider taking that, honestly. But because of 9 cost Rush Luffy, I was concerned about that being cracked back at me. And I didn't have the counter in my hand. Obviously, I didn't have a 2K, to where if I take that 7 and then he plays a 10 cost or 9 cost Luffy, I go down to 0 and pressure's on, right? So I just kind of had to make that counter. Straight 7 in. I did activate leader effect to get up to 10. So I knew I do have a new gate with a flush Don open. So I'm an 8K leader with a giant potentially open and 2 life. Very commanding position for us. Interesting to see his hand now. So he didn't have that 10 cost Luffy at all. I guess I would shouldn't a 9 cost Luffy at all, so I should have known that afterwards. I do just let him take the take the Beckman. Um, Countering down there, it doesn't feel worth it to me. I do take that. I think I still didn't have a 2K at this point, honestly. Maybe I did. Um, but I did elect to take it either way. He does play OP09. So at this point, I am planning on playing through the new gate and using his effect to KO the Onami. Um, but then I top deck a second new gate. And when I do that, it's kind of like, well, this new gate chain is so defensively strong that he'll probably just block with this, and just having two 10Ks is pretty damn good. He is bluffing 2 Dons, so he could just have 2 Giants for all I know. Probably not going to be immediately pressured to utilize them, but just something to consider that he could utilize them. That's where I'm kind of thinking hard here. I can't remember what 7 drop I had. Maybe it was the Sanji. No, I think I had a kid now. I think I had a 7 cost kid now, and I was considering playing through that and using the effect. But I figured if I get rid of his blocker and a giant, I don't get a ton of cards out of his hand, but that's a lot of value that I've gained back, and I'm still very defensively flexible. I do just take this 9. But I think I did just have a ton of counter. If he was gonna go for it, I was kind of just willing to um, get out of a 17K or try to. Um, guess we'll be fine. So he was swinging a little bit wider at me to rip away hand cards in case I do have the giant, which I did. But and I did just have to out of 8 Gum Gum Giant. Yeah, it was low on counter here than I remember him. Well, no, I was pretty flush. So I remember on this turn I'm debating whether or not to even go for it. Because I have a Sanji, so I'm like, if I play Sanji, rest the queen, swing 12 with Newgate KO the Nico Robin, that's very like commanding. He's bluffing one giant or showing one giant presently. Um, what I end up doing is because I'm kind of debating between playing through a Sanji or playing through, um, I think it was a queen. Oh yeah, it was a queen and a Nami. So I was like, I could just wall up and say, you have to have an Usohachi, and I would have gotten the Radical Beam. We ended up looking at it afterwards. So if I did play Queen, I would have had a giant, a Radical Beam, and a blocker for next turn. But I am kind of just feeling a little bit pressured about potentially losing. So I just check this 12 in first. He does and KO the Robin. He does elect to take this. Um, Thinking more about a Usohachi than a Sanji, I think. So resting the Sanji, then I do get to go in for 7 with my leader, get 2 cards out of hand there, and then 8 out of life, or 8 at life. He does have a giant to get out of that. Oh, he does draw another giant. I forgot. I didn't remember that. And I go 10K, kind of expecting him to win, but he does just have 1Ks there, so the Sanji did sneak in. Relatively speaking, I could have played a queen and had, again, with the Nami, a Radical Beam, a giant, and more counter in hand. So may have been fine otherwise. But I was having a little bit of issue getting these videos transferred over to my phone or to my laptop. So from my phone to my laptop. So I'm going to cut here and go into round 3 where we're 1-1 leading into that matchup.
All right, rolling into game 2. Oh, let's turn that down quite a bit. I'm fast forwarding it. So, interesting matchup here with green purple Lim. She is quite kind of similar to us, a little bit aggressive, ramping playstyle. Um, Honestly, some big misplays happen on both sides. I mess up very bad early in a way that it's just interesting. So I'll talk through it, and we'll talk through the last couple turns too, because kind of funny stuff both ways with a really friendly local good guy. So jump in. We both really want to go first, and I did win the die roll, so I did take that. Researched up a Mr. 9-cost Luffy on off Nami. I think I had a Mr. 2 in hand. I did not have a Zoro in hand. I could have searched the Zoro off of this, but I wanted the threat because I didn't have a 9-cost to ramp into. So I'm just planning on, and in the sequence too, with getting the 9-cost and having a Mr. 2, being able to swing in most matchups, and especially in 4-life matchups in particular, being able to go 6 with your leader. They usually take that, or if they do 2K it either way, you then go 5 with Nami, and it's good a little bit of pressure on their hand and kind of what counter they have early. In this case, he does play the Law on turn 1, which comes out rested because that's how Lim works. I guess I should mention that for people that don't know how Lim works. She is a Odyssey type leader, green purple 4-life, 5K power. She activate main for 3 Don. She ramps a Don and plays out an Odyssey type character that I think's 5 or less or something like that. So yeah, kind of like a ramping iceberg type of leader. Now I do go here, and I do remember drawing a Nami here, And the fact that I drew the Nami, actually, two things is really important. And you'll see here in a second. I swing into life, and then he 2Ks. And I kind of get locked in the fact that I want to go this 5 into Limb, and I want to go Mr. 2 and Nami next turn. So what I don't kind of really realize here, and you might not be completely familiar with the Odyssey package per se, but a lot of their cards care about how many rested characters they have for secondary effects. So attacking this law is not only very important, he also mentioned specifically that he would have countered out for this law. If I swing in with like a 2K from Nami or even a 3K for Nami, he said he would have countered out because that value is important enough to him. So what I should have done here is gone 4 into law with Nami, 6 into life, and played the other Nami. But I just wasn't really thinking. I mean, I don't know this matchup that well, so you learn, you live and learn. But because he immediately here uses his law to KO my Nami, gets to swing in 6. Then he uses his leader effect and plays out a Doflamingo, which is a 6K blocker that gets to restand itself if he has 2 rested characters. And in this case, the law allowed him to do that. Now, immediately, because he was able to restand that Doflamingo, so real quick, first of all, had I played the other Nami last turn, I could use that Nami to now swing into this law. That's good value. In addition to that, I could play Mr. 2 and go 8K into his 6K blocker, and I would have definitely done that in this scenario. But because it was restood, I now go 7 because I have to play that Nami out this turn. And then he gets to just block in 2K for pretty free. Now he plays this law that like bounces a character, then replays a character. Or character 3 or less does like a little shambles effect. The limb is just an Odyssey searcher, so he gets to search off of that. Then what he was just doing there was we were talking about their effects because Doflamingo says you have 2 rested characters to restand them. Lim says if you have 3 rested characters, restand her. And he does have to do them in the right order, is kind of what we're saying. Now he does get to go 6 twice for free. Kind of debating how I want to counter out of this 6, what 1K or 2K I want to keep. Then he plays out another Doflamingo with lead effect and gets to restand both of them. So again, had I kind of controlled board just a little bit better, could have been down a Doflamingo already and or down some cards in hand, and these effects would have not have been as naturally strong. Do just go double 6 and then directly into a. So he starts to put this Doflamingo out because he's expecting a 9-cost Kaido. He's thinking I was going to KO it. Because it's the rush Luffy, he's like, oh crap, put it back. And he's kind of aggressively taking life, trying to maintain his board, which kind of makes sense, I think. Just swing into the Mr. 2. Again, makes perfect sense. This audio is like the Odyssey Boss Monster, which is pretty interesting. It restands 3 down when it enters, so that's just a good refund immediately for a 9-cost. I think it's a 9-cost 9K. And then also on your opponent's turn, you can rest 1 down to go plus 2K once, which is nice. So then he starts to chip away at me with a whole bunch of 6s. So like those first 2 turns, I like gave away so much value, which is pretty brutal. Does the restanding stuff, has the audio. I think I play out yet. Nami. I was a little bit torn on what to go for here. And I think I end up grabbing a 9-cost Luffy if I recall correctly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it ends up being a 9 cost Luffy just for pressure. Yep. 6 in, 10 in. He blocks that one. Another 10k rusher. Get my Don back. Going for another 10. So kind of interesting thing. This is where kind of the ping pong of we'll call them plays take place. First of all, he's kind of vocalizing here again. It's kind of relatively chill environment that he's basically thinks he's not going to live through another turn regardless of what happens at this point. So he's kind of vocalizing that he thinks he has to kill me on his next turn, or he's not in great shape. Basically, not 100% lost, but maybe lost. So he's thinking here about what he wants to do, and he takes this life, preserving the 6k blocker and kind of playing to try to kill me this turn. He has a pretty decent hand size, and kind of what he mentions is that he should have, or what we end up discussing after the fact, is if that's true, he should have blocked with the first Doflamingo. The Doflamingo that he did block with, he should have blocked and then countered out to preserve it. Um, that shit would have just been a little bit better, especially knowing that I had the 9 cost Luffy to play through after I searched it, right? So now he is trying to line up lethal on me from his position. And he does just immediately start with a 10k swing, which has me kind of debating rather heavily as to how I want to go about this. I think I do, because he's kind of already vocalized that this is probably last turn. I do Gum Gum Giant, and I think the card I drew was my Radical Beam. So I did just trash that and draw 2 cards and then play a 1k to preserve that life. He did see the front of Soke be searched earlier, so he was just thinking about whether or not that was a thing. And then I maybe, probably, definitely throw this game. So swings 8 in. It's a little bit of a tough swing, right? I'm at 6k. He's going to have to take 2 cards from me or take a life. So I'm kind of debating about what's going to happen from here. Kind of funnily, I think at this point I vocalize, oh, your leader can swing. So I'm just trying to think through what I'm doing. I go 2 and 1, okay. A 6k in from the law. And this is where I'm thinking pretty hard. I'm like, okay, your leader can still swing, and you have 4 down available, and this Doflamingo. So we're just kind of debating what we're doing, how we're countering. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm good here. Okay, I'm going to 2k out. I got 1 card in hand. It's a 2k. It's an Usohachi. I just need to get out of this swing or this swing. And if he doesn't put, like, if he only puts 1 down here, then I can get out of that. And then the 3 from the leader doesn't matter. If he puts 2 on here, I don't get out of that, but I do get out of the 7k leader swing, so he has 4 left. But then I get caught up in my mind here that I want to use this Uso hot. Like, I already vocalized that his leader can swing. I think I kind of get caught in myself and I go, oh wait, this blocker is gonna get stood back up. I want to use this Uso Hachi to block that, to counter that. And then he sees me take this life and he just swings in 9 with his leader, and I just lose because I'm like, oh my god, I'm an idiot. There's no reason. 100% I counter there. We end up talking through. That's why this video is a little bit longer. If I counter there, he just leaves open limb. He doesn't swing with it because he doesn't want to give me the card in case it is an out. So then I would top deck, and then I would just have to put the Don on, and I would have gotten through because he has 0 life and 1 blocker. So it was just absolutely free, 100% guaranteed win for me if I just kind of don't get caught up on myself. I may have hit the Benjamin a little too hard in between rounds 2 and 3. But yeah, but also to that point though, had he blocked with his Doflamingo and countered out with it because he's deciding to go for lethal, then he just wins, right? Then he has the extra attacker that makes the difference here. So I misplayed, but he kind of misplayed first. And either way, it just is what it is. It's the locals. I lost out on a couple packs. I don't think he pulled anything very exciting at the end of the night either. I don't remember if he did get prizing or not per se, but um, yeah. So very interesting matchup, especially going into OP10. We might need to talk about this one a little bit more, but just kind of playing a little bit more into that law early, and then kind of checking some of the things. I would have been able to kind of grind out and control that board state quite a bit better. And my last life was a Gear 5 too, so a nice turnaround win potential there too. But yeah, that's round 3. We'll come back with round 4 against Teach. All right. Round 4, we do have Teach. They did win the die roll and elected to go second. I think I mulliganed. I start off with that Lafitte, get a stage. We just check the Lafitte, play out our Zoro. They did play out the matchup decently slow, which did make for them having a little bit of more resources in the later game. But they did find a lot of good removal too. So immediately get a Teach off of stage and play their dot Q still. Our Zoro lives, so we do love to see that. I think I play a Yasop out here. Yep. Against Teach, I pretty often take that first life, depending on what my hand looks like. And then usually I am going to kind of just shell up at 2 and protect for the most part, if I can, right? Because in the late game, those Teach swings and Burgess swings are going to come through pretty hard and heavy. So they're already down to 3 life. They get a second Teach already off that, and they go, all right, well, the chain's in motion. Another Searcher is pretty good. Does let me keep on play still, so I'm feeling decent about that. Get to be an AK leader, going for 8. I think some people would say that you from a Blackbeard position, you really want to turn off my 9 cost. But this does give him quite a bit of potential to grind out with some more cards in hand. And now he has began turning off lead effect, or using his lead effect to turn off my on plays. So now it's just go into Laboon, see if we can get some cards or just clear the Laboon, and then play out our Nougat. It's big vanillas. Freeze my Nougat. So here, I think I end up developing a couple bodies and going a little bit wider. Or is this already the... Yeah, actually, this is the play. I actually play out my one of Franasoke here. Just because I want to get some cards or get some life. I haven't really seen him. I haven't really seen any Search 2Ks really. Um, I was thinking that Franasoke was going to be a 6K swing, but I ended up literally playing Franasoke for 6 Don to rush for 5, just to get another swing in while I can. And then I end up developing a Mr. 2 as well. So I do kind of agonize over this decision. We do go in for a rush 5K Franasoke for 6 Don. Get another card out of hand. And then we just play a Bonclay, because that's going to be a functional 12K swing next turn if they play out another Teach or don't answer it. Or if they don't answer it, period. It's pretty tough decisions from his point of view for sure. He does search, get some value out of that Lafitte. 2K. Like, all right, that's not the best for us right now. If he did just go 5 in, I would have 2K'd for that Franasoke there, I think, honestly. To this point, I know obviously he's not going to 9 beard or 10 beard. I think he had another Teach and Burgess in that stage search. I feel like the counter may have been, but oh, he just does that for lead effect. Doesn't matter. Burgess is pretty big. So here I'm kind of debating. I don't really have good things to develop to the board. I have like 3 Usohachis, a Roger, and another 9 beard, and a 3 cost Zoro. So I kind of what I'm debating here is I kind of wanted to like develop a 9 beard, but I also want to use at least 2 Don on Newgate to check the Lafitte, like KO the Lafitte and check the Blackbeard. So if he blocks, he has to use counter. And I think this is the play where I do, yep, I go 7. He takes that. See, I know he had the 2K and one other card in hand. I guess I know he had the other Blackbeard in hand. At this point, I'm still debating how I want to split this up. So noteworthy here, I should have, in my opinion, put on one more at least. I was trying to do 2 things. I was trying to bluff or show Giant, either between my hand or between my 2 life, very possible. But I also was considering developing a Zoro Juro just to have an additional swinger available to me. So from this perspective, I definitely should have at least put on one more down to make it 15. So it's just 2 2Ks instead of a 2 and a 1, right? Um, but um, I think this is also just fine. So I was heavily debating just giving him that option to block it and 2 and 1. He's thinking through his next turn. He elects to take it. And as a Tempest Kick Sky Slicer is a trigger to draw 2 cards. It's also like a KO, a 0, or trash a stage that's 3 cost or less. So it's actually some decent value and kind of tech for stage decks, which in the mirror, I guess, is pretty good. But also, just this deck giving Sanji's peel off out of life is hilarious and terrifying, honestly. I was like, I do not like you having those extra cards. Once he took that hit, I elected to not play out the Zoro Juro because Roger's online. But previously, it probably been worthwhile if I was going to play out the Zoro Juro to just go 15 in instead of 14. Because if he did block and give up 2 cards there, could be a little nerve wracking for me. Actually, then his last card's just a 10 cost Teach, and it's not the end of the world, really. But I think I just gave up 3 2Ks there. All 3 Uzohachis, I think it was. 12 in, we just take. He does, you know, Teach and freeze my my Newgate. And now he's debating lead effect or not, and he realized that Gear 5 says he has to for sure. But then I just Roger, yeah. And that secures it. Yeah, GG. The Sky Slicer trigger was very nerve-wracking. And to his point, he mentioned he probably should have blocked and countered out. And to that point, I think I should have swung just a little bit harder there, because then I still get to play. If he takes it, if he blocks, or I can leave a down open with Zoro Juro still, basically. To that point, I did use the Zoro Juro to counter out, so it was nice to have in hand. But I had a life to spare too, right? So me taking my last life also gives me the opportunity to play through a Roger as well, right? So cool. Now we are 2-2. I thought this was the end of the event, but we did end up having a fifth round, so I could jump over. All right, let's jump into round five. We did get Boa. Did have a slightly different camera angle here because I did not really expect to have this, so I reset up my stand after taking it down. He's a very big blue player overall. He does play Dofi, he does play other blue leaders. I know he wants to play Buggy once the promos come out as well. Big blue collector overall. And I did win the die roll, and I like to go first. Remember my opening hand being fairly good, if I recall correctly. Yeah, I had my leader not on because I kind of started taking things down. We do search a 9 cost here. Starting with a Kaya and a Sengoku's pretty good. I think I did have the Zoroark already in hand. With a Boa being a fairly like removal centric Warlords engine, um, obviously kind of seeing the law here is pretty dang good for him. Don't like to see that from our point of view. And similar to some of the games against Dofi, I do believe that if I'm remembering correctly, yeah, I do just replay the um, Zoro here. Then he does get to play a Jozu out, bouncing my Zoro again. I'm like, this is a pain in my ass. So then he does counter down. I guess just real quick for Boa, if you aren't super familiar with her leader effect, she is 7 Warlords type, so that's why Law does work with her. But basically, if she removes a character with her effect during her turn, then she draws a card if she has 5 or less cards in hand. So generally speaking, they are going to counter out, keep that hand size underneath 5, so that they can get value out of removing your stuff and moving through the game. The Law into Dofi, the Dofi blocking the or bouncing the 7 cost is pretty good for him here. I thought it was a bottom deck like the 9 cost Law, which is or 9 cost Mihawk, which would have been very tough for us. But yeah, he does just bounce it, keep me as a 7K. And going into this turn, I do get up to 9 Don, and I am very heavily considering playing that 9 cost Luffy. But if I play that 9 cost Luffy, I'm very vulnerable to a Gum Gum Red Rock from him, and he knew I had that 9 cost Luffy. And not only am I vulnerable to a Red Rock, I believe he just did that for 8, so he's going to 10 down next turn because I didn't ramp, right? So, um, or maybe he went second, yeah. Um, and I lead effect up to 9 because I went first. Um, Slightly throw myself off here. But basically, I'm debating whether or not running out the 9 cost because because of Kid -1 down. Right. I'm like, this isn't adding up. Sorry. Yeah, Kid -1, go up to 8, go up to 9. I'm wanting to play out my 9 cost Luffy, but it's very vulnerable to a Gum Gum Red Rock. And only does the Red Rock hurt really bad. But he goes to 10 down next turn, Red Rock's for 6. And then he goes 7K swing, 7K swing, 1 down here, or 2 down here, 7K swing, two down here, 7K swing, or he goes for two nines. However wants to go about it, but that's very good for him at that point. So denying the value of, or like kind of trying to draw out the red rock on the kid, or denying the value of swinging, is very valuable to me. And you see in this hand, he does have another 7 cost Dofi that he is going to play. I am kind of debating, yeah, like I said, really heavily considering the 9 cost. But yeah, just swinging 7. He does elect to block it, which was a little bit surprising to me, but maybe he's wary of like a Beckman or something. Yeah, just replay the kid, become a 7K leader. He basically just Dofies again, and then does swing into me a little bit. Give him 1 there. I think I take that. Then he goes 8, and I think I have a 2K if I'm recalling right. Yep. Now we're up to 10. And I think I played the kid a third time in a row here. Again, just with the 7K bodies on board, as much as I do kind of want to push the aggressive stance, again, same thing happens if he has a red rock, then I'm just too defensively positioned, and then I lose a lot of counter at the same time. And we do just go for a big 9 in. Another thing with Boa too, like I've mentioned, with them wanting to counter down for their leader effect to be turned on, pressuring to where it's going to take a lot of cards from them to do so is very effective. In other matchups, it may have been more of a consideration. Well, actually, it's only 3 down, so meh. Either way, that's probably the best is 10 there. But 1K out, another 1K out, another 1K in. Whittling away my hand. We do take that one. Brings in 9. I think I do have a giant here. Nope, I do go 2 2s. And then I'm kind of expecting to do the same thing, and I just cycle with the giant here. Or no, I did just elect to take it. So I'm kind of debating how I want to play through this next turn. And yeah, I do just like to take that. Draw the card. We have 2 Don active. Whittling away with an 8K, 7K, 10K swings. 2 Don active, 7K leader. So now he's feeling the pressure. Kind of has some decisions to make around the way he wants to attack me. He does just straight go 17K in. The first one goes from 7 to 11. The second one goes from 11 to 15. Then we go another 2 and a 1 to go up out of 17. And then another 7 comes in. Got another 1K, another 7K. And we do get through. Well, I guess real quick. We'll see how I attack in just a second, but we did end up kind of going back over this and having some conversation around the fact that he had the 3 5K characters and whether or not like going for 7 7 7 and then using the other 4 Dom to disperse among the 9 draw or 7Ks is better. We did also walk through that with the counter that I did draw and have access to. It wouldn't have mattered. I would have had counter regardless. I would have been closer to exact. I think I had 1 card left over, whereas here I did have, or no, I think it would have been exactly in that case as opposed to only having 1 card here. I did minus a lot of down here though, so not necessarily guaranteed lethal with the hand size that he has. And I kind of realized that it looks like life. That was just my hand being set down out of the way. And then we were talking about just like whether or not it's better to go the other cards. And he's like, all right, yeah, let's finish the turn and go. So interesting thing here to talk about, right? He has one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 cards in hand and 1 life. We have one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 Don. Um, so interesting sequencing with our characters. Because of the way that Eustace's kid effect is both a Don -1 and B a buff to our leader. We want to utilize at least 1 Don before swinging with kid. So technically, we take slightly suboptimal sequencing if we want to achieve that, I guess you could say. Because with 7 Don, 1 Don on this Luffy does check at least 3 2Ks and 4 cards out of their hand, which is half their hand, which is good. But if they take this, which they do, um, divvying this up is a little bit less favorable. But I guess if they counter out, it's pretty good either way. But basically, what I end up doing here is I put 1 Don onto this Luffy, so it's 11, and then he takes it. So I do end up playing, going the rest of my Don on Eustace Kid and using the effect. Um, but it does make some thoughts. There's kind of conversation around. So if he did counter out of this, right, he would have lost half his hand. He would have had 4 cards in hand and 3 life left. I could have gone 1, 2, 3 on Kid, and then had 3 left over for Luffy. So it should have been at that point 2 on Kid, make it 10, and then 4 for Luffy would make it 11 on the last 2 swings. But because he takes it, I just go straight 13 and activate Kid effect. I start to panic, and then I realize that he's setting down 1Ks, and I'm like, we are fine. Yeah, and then we start talking about the Red Rock and kind of the decisioning around that. So real quick, I actually meant to do this earlier, then I got some sidetracked with some other things. Um, I do think I end up. No, I don't think. I know I finished 3 and 2. But I did want to pull up the event real quick with my placing. Um, I did end up 8th out of 25 people. And then some other people, there was the invite given to the larger event in March. So, with my moving situation kind of being up in the air and maybe making some changes around kind of my location, I may not even be here for that round of that big tournament. But I will try and get into a couple more qualifiers. And if I am still in the Chicagoland area, I would definitely love to participate in that tournament. But yeah, just a quick locals gameplay breakdown. Hope some of the decision making and conversation was helpful for y'all. Like, comment, subscribe. We are trying to hit 1,000 subscribers ASAP. Would like to do a small giveaway probably after 500 or pretty soon. Would love to do that. But yeah, let's keep growing and keep playing the best league that we got. Talk to y'all soon.